When you're opening a supermarket,
Yes.
what's the product with the shortest shelf life?
Oh, shortest.
Yeah.
Bread.
Good answer, wrong.
Lettuce. Specifically lettuce.
That was just the tip of the iceberg.
Hang on. Just the tip of the iceberg. Brilliant. Hi, and welcome back to Making Video Your Business, the podcast that encourages you to think about your marketing strategy and find great ways to make visual content part of your business. Today, I'm joined by a really great friend of mine, Vaughan Schofield. Vaughan, thanks so much for coming to our podcast. I really appreciate it. Could you just give me a bit of a brief history of who you are, what your career has looked like?
Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation. How far back do you want me to go?
How did you get started? What was your first job, I guess?
I think it's fair to say the greatest part of my working life has been in retailing. After university, the biggest part of my life has been in retailing, and worked for several different retailers and spanned the whole spectrum of jobs within retailing. So from store manager to area manager to regional director to retail director across 5 different companies.
Oh, supermarkets or?
Supermarkets initially. I was with Tesco, then went to Iceland Foods, then went on to a company called Retail Variations, which are a multi-branded company, in-store and pound stretcher, and then finished off with being a retail director of Benson's. So people always thought, how on earth did you even think about selling property or renting property?
Because that's what you do now, right?
Because that's what I do now. Having a business in Wrexham up in North Wales, Belvoir, both a Belvoir officer sells and both lets properties, and I have been doing that for the last 15 years. So the big question always people ask is, my God, isn't that a massive
change? Yeah.
It is and it isn't. In the sense that it's always about people, building relationships. It's always about trying to engage and influence and positive impact on situations.
But that's business in general.
Yeah, and that was the same with my experience in corporate life. I suppose there's a small addition is that my parents always, ever since I can remember, invested in property for different reasons, be it to flip property, to invest in property. They were landlords. That also inevitably had an influence as well.
So that's what gave you, I guess, maybe an impetus. But why then did you step out of a retail environment into property? What was the catalyst that pushed you from one to the other?
I think I wanted to do it for quite a while, step out of corporate life. But once you're in corporate life, there is a thing that people call golden handcuffs, in the sense that you're paid a decent salary at the level I was at. They give you a lovely company car. They give you a fabulous pension. You get bonused. And those are golden handcuffs because they tie you in. But I always had this yearning to work for myself, something that my mum and dad had done ever since I can remember. So it was a case of, do you give up with at the time, a relatively young family, do you give up something that gives you security for something that is, certainly in the first instance, for most people starting a business, it's that feeling of insecurity.
It is scary. It is scary. It's a scary thing to do. But what was that moment? Could you sort of maybe pinpoint when you made that sort of decision?
My wife and I are complete opposites. So she's the yin to my yang. She likes certainty. I was prepared to take a far greater account of risk. I was more prepared to go forward. But it came to a point where we both thought that the jobs that I was involved in were fairly high risk, because if for the companies I worked on, if everything went well, they were inevitably sold on and bought out by bigger companies, in which case then you were also always at the mercy of this bigger company, either wanting to keep you, or more likely, because they were a bigger company, wanting to enjoy economies of scale, they would get rid of you.
Yeah.
And then you would be then looking for another job where almost the process would be repeated.
Yes.
Of course, if it went the other way and you weren't doing well enough, then people were going to get rid of you anyway. So it was one of these high mortality jobs.
Yeah.
And
It's got to be stressful, right? At some stage.
It does get stressful at that point where you know things are going to change, because you're then there are things that you can't control. So when a new company comes in, inevitably they're going to make a decision whether they've got somebody already that they've known for the last 10 years who could do your job and enjoy that economies of scale. Then, it's nothing personal, but you're not going to be wanted.
No.
In which case you're paid off and you then try and find another position. This was an opportunity for us to really secure our future because it depended on me and us and how we did and how we committed to the business.
Why do you think estate letting agents are so important and so intrinsic to the moving process, or do you think they are?
I think we're in danger within the profession, and particularly on some social media platforms, of elevating estate agents to being something similar to the second coming. It's almost like an evangelical kind of crusade. I change people's lives. And people are welcome to their view, right? But when I hear or read that, I'm thinking, really? Really? I think heart surgeons, paramedics, you could be a community leader in some of the poorest areas in this country. Those kind of people who are excel in those positions, they change people's lives. Me, I'm an enabler. The same as a taxi driver. Yeah. The same as a train driver. Yeah. We take people from A to B, and if I can quote Tom Panos.
Yeah, great Australian agent.
Absolutely. I remember him saying, we're not the heroes in this story. We're not the heroes. The heroes are our clients. And we need to allow them to have that platform in the process. Yeah. It's not about us, but it can appear that people's ego are so needy that we need to overplay it.
Do you think, though, that, and you made quite an interesting point about community leaders, some of the best agents that I see and that we work with and that we've worked with over the last 5 years plus are those agents who think differently about what they do and think differently about how they transact within their local area, their towns, and actually add value in different ways. I think estate and letting agents have a real importance and have a real value, certainly in that moving process, and more of a reassurance, maybe not as vital as someone who works with the NHS or a doctor or, someone at that sort of level, of course, and but I do think that estate and letting agents have a really important role to play. And I think in some areas they are doing great things. We work with a guy in North London called Pete Lawrence, and he probably spends as much time working on community things as he does working in his business, and adding value into his local sports clubs and adding value into making content for local businesses and making video content and using his platform to lift his area and lift his community. And I know you've done a lot of that in Wrexham, and Wrexham's seen a huge resurgence, and we'll talk a bit about Wrexham as well. I do think that whilst I agree that it's not life-changing necessarily or earth-shattering, they have a really important role to play.
I agree 100% with everything you've said. And I think I've watched Pete Lawrence. I do follow other estate agents. And as you know, from my own contribution locally, I think we can play a part that is wider than just estate agency or being a letting agent. We can play a part in promoting our community, local businesses. I think that is the right thing to do, a laudable thing to do. So I'm all for that. That would be closer to changing people's lives. I don't think we're quite there, but we're getting closer to that. I'm very much on that road, as opposed to when we're letting or selling properties. People will make decisions for themselves, whether a house is their next home or not. We are there to do our level-headed best in helping them and enabling them on that journey. That's as far as the actual work of an estate and letting agency is concerned. That is where I think it sits.
Turning then to actually visual content. So people who are making video, how have you seen this shift, this sort of transition, I guess, for the property industry? We started working within property about 5 years ago, but how have you seen a real change, a real step change in the use of visual media by agents?
Well, we started working together just over 4 years ago.
Is it that long?
Yeah, I know. It's just did you see blogger?
Seems like
we started working over 4 years ago. I came to one of your video training sessions.
Was it here?
It was here.
Yeah.
Not this particular room, but a room adjacent to this one.
Yeah.
I met you and Matt for the first time.
I'm sorry about him.
Not the worst I've ever worked with.
Not the worst you've ever worked with.
And it was at a time where I suppose I was facing a bit of a challenge. We'd grown well as a business. I didn't know how I could have a further impact and grow more. I seemed to have come to a plateau.
Yeah.
And I was desperately looking for what levers were available to me. And by following other people, because one thing I would always encourage people to do, just don't follow your competitors in your own town, because you will never lead if you're doing that. So in any business, absolutely. So I was always following other estate and letting agents across the UK in different parts. Followed some, unfollowed them if they weren't giving me value, added value, and also going abroad, Australia, the States, just for some inspiration. And that's where it got to me that, that there was a growing number of agents who were using media as a way of promoting their business. Myself and two of my colleagues at the time, we came on a course here, which you were running, but on the day, it just so happened Chris Watkin was also in the building. And we had a day of on training on the video. At the time, I was motivated by the fact of what it could do for my business.
Yeah.
What I would say now to anybody not engaging in video marketing is, it's not about adding value anymore. You should be doing it now because it is actually directly damaging your business by not doing it. I think things have moved on. In my own town, there are people now who are engaging in video work, in selling property or promoting their own business. In the bigger conurbations, overwhelmingly the majority of people are doing it. So I think you should do it, and you should do it as well as you can.
But how do you think that's changed, though? Because obviously when we started doing content in the property industry, it was housing tours, and that was fine. And obviously with the COVID lockdowns came, we helped hundreds of agents who had not actually engaged with video before, and, just gave them some advice and some support free of charge, just to try and help when everything closed. And we were, to be honest, we were bored. We sat at home. We couldn't make anything. We couldn't go anywhere. And it was tours. It was tours for properties that were empty, properties to let, properties for sale. Do you think that is the market for video in property now? Just housing tours?
The short answer is no. I think it forms part of it.
We've got to market the stuff you're selling.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And if you look at Knight Frank, they do it really well, I think, on video tours.
Big agent, yeah.
Yeah, big agents, and they do it really, really well. But I think if you're promoting the brand, your brand, I think it needs to be wider than that. And that's where we go back to what we discussed before, where you show yourself to be very much part of the community and for the community, and promoting the town or the city you work and live in, promoting the businesses in that area, and being positive about that area. Realistically positive. I'm not talking here about pipe dreams. So I think that plays a part, because I think it's important for the community to see you as being somebody who does add value, more than just being the job that you do on a day-to-day basis.
And someone who cares.
Yeah, that will come across, obviously.
Yeah, because we talk often about know, like, and trust. And Chris, you mentioned Chris Watkin, good friend of ours, big friend of mine, has been for many, many years. And he talks about the trust mountain, you know, and having to start engaging with people and encouraging people to, you know, look at your stuff and start following what you're doing and engaging with people before they need you. And almost what you do becomes secondary to them knowing you exist. And there's some great agents that have done that nationally. You've been making video content now for 4 years or so. Have you found it hard? Have you found it difficult?
Yes, is a short answer. It is time consuming. It's demanding. Organising it is, when we do our monthly Wrexham property TV coverage, trying to organise for contributors to come in. When you phone them 2 or 3 weeks before the actual programme, universally the answer is yes. 3 days, 2 days, 1 day before the filming itself, you often get a phone call and to tell you why it's now not convenient anymore. So that part is taxing and a bit demanding. My approach to it, I think it's very much it should be a smorgasbord. So the polished TV quality stuff you do for me. I have.
Thanks.
Well, not just you, but obviously I've got.
Not me.
I've got.
I'm the worst one now. That's the worst part.
I've got also Matt and Nick to thank as well, obviously, and then you've got Pete and Toads.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, everybody's made a massive contribution, and that kind of quality I think is important to have as your core presentation. But then your iPhone, you can do. If I can call it quick and dirty,
absolutely,
30 seconds, 45 seconds videos, just to show a day in the life of an estate and letting agent in your town. And people find property interesting. There's loads of people out there who find property an interesting subject.
Well, our mate Chris, he says that it's the second most interesting, or the second most talked about topic in the UK after the weather.
Oh, I'm glad you said weather. I don't know where you were going.
The weather. Yeah,
I'm glad you went there.
Yeah. The weather.
Okay. You might be right.
Yeah.
Certainly, it's part of everyday conversation.
Yeah, because everyone's either they're always looking at Rightmove, or they're always looking at Zoopla, or they're always looking at On the Market. And I think it's interesting. You know, even if they're not in the market to move, they're thinking about the next home, or they're thinking about a holiday home, or they're thinking about, you know, their parents' next move, if they need to upsize or downsize, or retirement, you know, their children's first home. You know, it has a huge impact on everything that we do. And the property market is a massive economic driver for the country.
Sure.
You know, and the fluctuations in that have an impact on every business and every person. So it is interesting. You know, it's interesting to people. I think the key things for agents to do, and my sort of tip or recommendation would be to think broadly about what your customers or your potential customers, not necessarily people that you're dealing with you today, but the people who might be thinking about dealing with you tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, what they might be interested in knowing in advance before they get into the market. And I know you've done some great work around the moving process, literally the nuts and bolts of transactioning, how it happens, mortgage advice, bits of support around, you know, where to get great mortgages from. Your friend Karis, who's a mortgage advisor, gives you some great support in that area. You know, I think that's really important. I think those sort of things are great. When you started to put video content into your business, that was the only fundamental change you made to your marketing strategy. What do you think it has done, not just in terms of income generation, but for your business as a whole?
By virtue of what it is, it's visually elevating not just the specific property we're marketing, it's elevating us as an estate and letting agent in the eyes of anybody who looks at that material. And thereby gives us profile.
Yeah.
I mean, if you wanted to become an authority on any subject in your sphere of influence in the past, you'd write a book.
Yeah.
Today, you don't do that. Today, you make video material. If you want to be seen as an authority on a given subject, that's what you do. So it's given us profile. It's given me an opportunity to have meetings with both vendors and landlords, and more of them than I ever had done before. I go to front doors, and when they open, people call me by my first name, and there's almost that look of recognition on their faces and I've never met these people before.
Do you think it's got you in places that you wouldn't have been able
Oh,
to
without
get to?
doubt. Absolutely. There's absolutely no doubt about that at all. None whatsoever. When we commissioned Property Video Solutions to initially undertake...
Shameless plug.
to undertake a monthly filming session in Wrexham. I remember having the conversation with Mrs. Schofield about this financial commitment.
Yeah.
Mrs. Schofield being risk averse, because we'd never done this before.
And it's £50,000 a month, and it's a massive.
It was good value. When you look back, it was good value. But at the time, it was something that we hadn't done before.
Something to do.
And if you're dealing with anybody who's risk averse and there's no certainty, there's always going to be questions.
Of course.
So our agreement was that we would give it 9 months. We'd budget 9 months worth of cost.
Yeah.
We're going to hit it hard for 9 months. And I thought it would work. She wanted it to work.
Yeah.
And then we would review the situation. And what happened was, within 3 months, Mrs. Schofield was telling me, this is really working well. I've had another lady on the phone this morning asking us to go over to give a sales valuation. And as an adjoining line, she said, is it that man on the video that's coming to do it?
Yeah.
She was sold from 3 months onwards that it was making, and this is from someone who needs to see the numbers. 3 months, we had an impact, and it's carried on from there. Things like recently been invited onto an informal work group to look at forming a Wrexham Business Award evening. It's going to be
black tie, big deal.
A big deal. And it's about celebrating Wrexham. And if you remember when we first talked about what I wanted to do, it was all about going to small businesses, promoting small businesses. And it was very much following what Chris Watkin used to recommend. Go to small business, ask them what they think of the town, why they like Wrexham, what do Wrexham people like
about Wrexham,
and
why Wrexham,
and what do Wrexham people like about your business and what works well. And that had, for me, a good amount of mileage.
Had good return.
And a very good return. And at that point, I wanted to slightly change it because I wanted to have an opportunity to inform, because there are so many people out there that are interested in property.
Of course.
But it's a bit like food retailing in a sense. If you go to a supermarket every week, everybody's a food retailing expert. But it's not until you actually work within the business do you understand it's more than just the product on the shelf. It's more than just the shopping experience. It takes a lot more than that to get that business working and working efficiently. Quick question, right? Quiz.
Go.
When you're opening a supermarket,
what's
the product with the shortest shelf life?
Oh, the shortest?
Yeah.
Bread.
Good answer. Wrong.
Lettuce. Specifically lettuce.
That was just the tip of the iceberg.
Hang on. Just the tip of the iceberg. Brilliant. Let me remain on it.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
Fresh cakes with cream.
Good answer. No.
Oh, God, I've no idea then.
Newspaper.
Yeah, true.
So when you're actually building in a sort of a timeline for stocking a retail business, certainly a supermarket business, those are the last things to be placed because they've only got 1 day shelf life.
And that's why they're by the door, right?
Correct.
First thing you see, last thing you see.
Yeah.
So
I've thrown you now.
No, that's fine. But so access-wise, it's giving you access all areas, basically, video-wise. And actually, Chris Watkin would have said this, and a few other of our friends have seen this. When you put a film crew around you, you can go places that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get into. I mean, we've famously just turned up to Arla Property Mark event, which is a massive property event at Excel at the Excel Exhibition Centre in London. And we just turned up with Chris, and we just got some free passes. We hadn't got any permissions to film, nothing. And he just turned up and see whether he got told off or not, and he didn't. And then obviously afterwards we've been invited, and that's fine. It's all legit now. But first time we just went. to see what would happen. Made a ton of content. People are like, oh, who's that guy? Who's that guy with the film crew? And it gives people that, oh, they must be famous. They must be famous. And we, you know, we love Wrexham. We talk about Wrexham Town, and Nick and I and Matt have sort of follow the club now and everything else. And we were able, following the Wrexham documentary with Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, you know, we were able to get an interview with Wayne Jones at the Turf.
That's right, yeah.
The Turf. I felt like I was meeting someone famous. I felt like I was meeting a celebrity, and we bought a brick on the wall, and, you know, we bought a shirt, and we've, you know, I wear my Wrexham cap with pride when I'm walking around Lincolnshire, which is weird, you know, as a lifelong Spurs fan, but I like that, you know, second club almost. And it's been amazing to see how the fortunes of that have gone, and hopefully that will see the town improve as well. And I think it has already.
Without doubt.
You know, but it's the same principle. You know, us meeting Wayne Jones in the Turf is the same as that lady opening her front door to you and going, oh, hi, Vaughan. You know, and that almost instant recognition. I knew him as soon as he walked in the pub. He's just a pub landlord. You're just an estate agent. I'm just a guy who makes video. But because people have seen us, there's that recognition, and that...
You have been in somebody's front room before they've even met you. And, you know, there are some people who will like what they see. There are some people who won't like what they see.
Sure. That's fine.
That'll happen as well. The people who like what they see, they're the ones who will invite you into their home.
Yeah.
And it's a warmed up lead before you even cross the threshold.
So do you think it's had a financial impact on your business?
Yes, it has. Obviously, it has. I mean, I wouldn't be investing the money that we have invested if it was. I mean, it's not a vanity project.
No.
I really do not need.
It's about returns.
Absolutely, that is about that. The bottom line. If it wasn't giving me returns, we would have a conversation that I'm not getting the returns, and it wouldn't have extended beyond that 9-month period. It more than doubled. Well, it must be 18 months or so now since we've been doing.
I've lost track.
Yeah,
but I mean, we've been working together for 4 years. We've been
been
coming to and from Wrexham probably for 2 years.
Easy,
Maybe over 2 years now.
Yeah, easy.
How have you seen the financial fortunes of your business change then as a result of just adopting video content?
I would say the rate of return is 3 to 4 times the investment. That's a
is that a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
Yeah.
You know, that would be a realistic statement.
Yeah.
But the big cut through would have been when we had the conversation. I'm sure you'll remember it, when I wanted to go away from just simply promoting local businesses.
Yeah, which you did well.
Which and it
helped a lot of people.
Absolutely, it played its full part, undoubtedly.
My mate Steve Tapp at the Trainers, he's just done me a beautiful pair refurb. Amazing.
Steve Tapp, big heads up to Steve Tapp.
Legend.
Lovely guy, fantastic business.
Yeah.
But I wanted then to start giving people information, because it's not just about this. To understand how selling houses work, how letting property work, but for both landlords and tenants, and likewise for both vendors and buyers as well. So that's when we started to use Gareth Lloyd locally to talk. Caris Bailey for mortgages, Gareth Lloyd for getting people to understand what the buying process is, because you cannot blame anybody for not knowing how the buying process works. When the average person in this country, they only move every 7 to 9 years. If you only do something once every 7 to 9 years, you're not going to remember how it was the previous time. So I think it's a good thing, because the more informed people are about both selling houses and renting houses, the more informed people are, the better it is in terms of communication and understanding for any quality agent, be it a letting agent or an estate agent, because that information will mean that you're talking to people at a level where they fully understand what they should be getting as a service standard and what is unacceptable as a service standard.
So now that you've become dominant in your local market, you've added huge amounts of visual content in, your business has grown, does that allow you to charge more? And does it mean that you can... There's a lot of noise in the UK property market a lot of the time about being a 2% agent.
Yeah.
Right. You know, commanding a 2% fee, which is, you know, going back to the old days where estate agents were able to charge, you know, actually what I think they're worth, you know, what I personally think their worth, because of the value they have towards the moving process. With all of that said and done, with all of that extra stuff, does that now allow you in Wrexham to command a 2% fee?
No.
Why?
This is where, as opposed to my comments might not, they might not lie very well with some people. I think there is an ignorance and certainly a misunderstanding about the property market, in that it's not a uniform market across the UK. What you have in my neck of the woods and in other many northern towns is a situation where a 2% estate agent would not make a living. My business is in a unabashed blue collar town where the concentration for overwhelmingly most families is on cost. And you have competitors who will sell anything from their great grandmother to a castle to a 2-bed terrace for 800 quid. And that is very much a baseline service that will have traction with many people in those towns, those kind of towns. The reason Waitrose, a highly successful company, don't have a store in towns like mine, city status, city like Wrexham, is because they know the customer base to look at value first before they look at cost. That doesn't exist in my town. And as a result, trying to charge 2% would be suicidal.
Have you been able to increase fee?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is far easier, not easy, but easier to show and demonstrate to people with video content, for example, that you're adding something significantly different, significantly of better quality, that will reflect far better on their property than what some of my competitors are doing. So for that, I can certainly charge more. They understand I'm charging more, and they can identify why I'm charging more. And in some cases, we're charging maybe £800 more than the nearest competitor. But can I charge 2%? There is in near my neck of the woods an agent called Ian Story.
He's a friend of mine.
And a friend of yours. Obviously, he's not choosy.
No. That's fair. That's fair.
Harsh but fair.
Hi, Ian.
Seriously, he is a fan. He's a 2% agent.
Yeah, he's an out-and-out 2% agent.
2% agent. Yeah. And I follow Ian's story because I regard him as a high-quality agent.
He had some quality training, that's right.
Yeah, quality training as well. Wow.
The same training that you had.
I would say he's a high-quality agent. I follow him. I think he's a guy who thinks constantly about the business, how he communicates with his particular community. But he's gone to Cheshire because that leafy Cheshire is a Waitrose populated area. Though those are areas, it doesn't make it an easy job for him. He's still very demanding. It's a very demanding patch of the world because the competition's very, very fierce there.
Of course.
He's doing a great job in a great area where 2% is attainable. And that's why he hasn't got an office in Wrexham. And frankly, I'm pleased he hasn't got an office in Wrexham.
So follow up then. Are you the most expensive agent in Wrexham?
There are two answers to that.
I know there are.
I don't regard myself as the most expensive agent in Wrexham. I'm the best value.
The best value.
Yeah, I offer overwhelmingly the best value.
I was being a little bit naughty, but do you charge more than everyone else and can demonstrate why?
I am the best value agent in Wrexham. I can demonstrably show that I offer additional value.
And therefore command a higher fee.
And therefore will command a higher fee because of that. But there is a level of misunderstanding at the moment. There are leafy areas in certain parts of the country where people do believe, I could charge 2% wherever I go. I really disagree with that. It's very much, why would you be able to do that when there are no other such businesses operating in those towns?
It's a fair point. So finally then, if I was to come to you as a business owner in general, when it comes to marketing strategy, what would be your top 3 bits of advice to have a huge step change within my business?
Obviously, the video content would be key. And I would have, within that particular subject area, I would have a short-term plan of what my videos were trying to achieve, a medium-term plan, and then an ongoing plan. And where I am currently with Wrexham Property TV is the ongoing plan, where it's now something we attract anywhere between, in a town of 28,000 people,
Yeah.
we attract 10, 12,000 views every month. So it gives us a fantastic platform.
Yeah.
That would be number one. There are plenty of really positive, good things going on, even in the most challenging of towns and areas. It's too often the negative vibes, the negative communication, the negative noise gets far more airtime. So I would go and champion those people who are making a big effort to do positive things, and build links there.
Third tip?
Final tip. The third one for me is possibly, doesn't sound too glamorous.
Nope.
But it's hard work and resilience. You need to have those qualities in abundance. By hard work, I think everybody believes they work hard. But I think if you are starting off any business, it has to consume you. You have to be driven by it. You have to be passionate about it, because the worst thing to happen is if it didn't work out, that you had regrets. I could have done more. I could have worked a bit longer. I could have done this. I didn't actually take that opportunity and make the most of it. And resilience, possibly the most important attribute any person can have. We will all have bad days. And if you allow them, bad days can become bad weeks. And bad weeks can become a bad month. And before you know it, you've got a bad year. You need to have resilience in order to bounce back from any disappointments. And being your own boss, being self-employed, there'll be plenty of days when things don't exactly go as you would like.
Like a round of golf. If you have a bad hole, just forget about it, move on.
Move on.
That's it. Vaughan, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thanks a million. And up the town.
Up the town, Chris.
Cheers, mate.
No problem.